What's up, sister? It's your girl, Danielle, and welcome back to the Pretty Powerful Podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for today because Lindsay is my friend and I'm so obsessed with her, but I'm so excited to ask all the fun, detailed questions of business and all the things. So we are in for a special treat. So I have Lindsay. Oh my gosh, I should have asked before. I'm going to mess your name up because I feel like I always do. Dollinger. Grr. See, I was about to say that. And I was like, no, it can't be that. It has to be the other way. Okay. Lindsay Dollinger is a women's business coach, a podcast host of the Purpose and Pixie Dust podcast, high school Spanish teacher, rescue dog mama, and Disney lover. And I know you say lover, but I would say obsessor. It's like a whole level. She helps women with productivity and strategy to grow their businesses with a little pixie dust thrown in. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay. I'm so excited, Danielle. I have wanted to be on your show forever, and I always love our conversations. So I'm excited for today.
Yay. And again, we have no rhyme or reason. There's no plan. We're just going to have some coffee chat and see where the conversation takes us. So before we get into like the businessy stuff, I mean, business is fun, but before we do that, what is your favorite part of Disney?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This question, I feel like I give a different answer every time because I'm like, there's so many parts that are my favorite. But I think the biggest thing is just the whole vibe, like the whole energy when you go to Disney, even if you go by yourself, but especially if you go with family or friends, just the experience where you can go, forget about everything else, unplug from the world, and just be like immersed in this really magical experience. I love it because whenever I leave, it's always such a good reminder, like, why can't every day be like this? Like every day doesn't have to be at Disney, but that energy and that vibe we can take into our everyday parts of our life. And does it always happen? No, but it's a really good reminder of, like, let's get to that level and keep it that way, even when we're not at Disney parks. So that's probably my favorite.
I love that. So, okay. So then how do you, again, you said, how do we make that part of our everyday life? So little the pixie dust. So how do you add that little pixie dust into your day on a consistent basis?
Such a good question. So I feel like there's a lot of layers to that. But one of the biggest ones for me, probably in the past couple of years, is really getting super self-aware of like what brings me joy and lights me up and what depletes me, whether that is people I'm around, environments, tasks that I'm doing, workouts that I'm doing. Like, why am I making myself do these workouts that are killing me when I really love like this kind of workout, things like that. Which is also maybe why I won't ever run a marathon again. So we'll see. Someone will, I will in like 10 years, someone will be like, you said you're never going to do it. But, I really love the idea of it. I love the, like the training schedule, for example, but the actual marathon itself was horrible. I hated almost every second of it. So it's just that self-awareness piece of, like I said, what really lights you up. And then adding on another layer is making those boundaries in your life and really sticking to them, being disciplined enough to be like, no is no, or finding ways to strategically take out those pieces that don't light you up and then add in some of those ones that do more. So like, for me, I love my Peloton bike workouts. Like that brings me a lot of joy, like certain instructors specifically, or going for a walk with my dog, or, the mastermind that I'm in right now. I really love hopping on those calls because those women are my kind of women and it's my kind of vibe, So just little things like that I get to look forward to in my day. And it doesn't have to be always going to Disney World. It can be, your everyday parts of life. But I think it comes down to that awareness piece first, for sure.
So just taking away as much as we are able to, right? We can't just everyone leave their job and do, like get rid of everything, but removing some of the things that don't bring us joy and really adding in the things once you identify like what brings you joy and adding those into your day.
Absolutely. So like, for example, you said job. I'm a teacher full time, and I found myself when I would get into the teacher's workroom, falling into like the gossiping and the cattiness of some of the conversations that were going in. And I haven't eaten lunch in the teacher's workroom for like 4 years now. Just because I'm like that. I would walk away feeling like icky. And it might not be, it might have been stuff that other people said, but a lot of times it was stuff that I found myself falling into. And I'm like, okay, this isn't the woman that like I'm becoming with like my personal development and all this other stuff. And so that's one example of like my everyday life where now I eat with a couple women. We eat in like a separate room, or we eat in my room, or sometimes I just eat in my room by myself and let myself recharge that way. But that's one example of a way where I'm like, okay, that doesn't really feel great to me. And why I still love my coworkers and I absolutely respect them. Just that environment for me wasn't one that I wanted to be in.
So good. I love that. Again, it all comes back to that awareness piece, right? Like of becoming aware of who we are and who we want to be and like what is actually helping us do that and what's actually kind of pulling us back and making choices. So I love that. Okay. So like you just said, you're a teacher full time. You do all these things. You travel, I feel like every other day. You're in a new spot and you're like going. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this so much. And you're running a business and you're helping people and, all these things. So when it comes, we've talked or mentioned, productivity and strategies and time management and all of the things. For someone that's listening who's like, okay, that sounds great. I'd love to work full time and I'd love to run a business on the side and I'd love to go to Disney all the time. Like, what would your top few tips be for that person that you have personally found helpful?
So I get really creative, first of all. So someone just asked me this at a teacher conference I was at. They were like, you just went to Disney twice this fall. Like, how did you do it? How did you get the time off? Well, I was like, well, the first one, technically, I went down for a teacher conference. So I found a teacher conference. I've actually gone the last couple of years. That was in Orlando. And it was, on a topic that I wanted to go to. And I get a certain number of days off a year to go to conferences. So I picked it where, it was a Thursday, Friday conference. I flew down Wednesday night. So then in the evenings when the conference was over, I would go to Disney or, on the Saturday and Sunday before I flew home, I would go to Disney. So I get really strategic and creative around those sorts of things. Same thing with travel. I've actually won a lot of my travel abroad experiences, not all of them. But for example, I literally will Google teachers traveling for free or, teacher travel abroad or travel abroad grants, travel abroad scholarship, yada, yada, and it's amazing what's out there if you actually look for it. So I think getting creative and really going after the things that you want, because I just knew, especially at the beginning stages of my teaching career 10, 15 years ago, I didn't have the funds to do those things if I did not get creative. So I think getting creative and finding those ways. And another example tying back into Disney with my business this time is I love hosting retreats. So I have hosted retreats for women closer to home in Northern Kentucky the past, 3 years. And I've built Disney into my brand so much. I'm like, I'm going to do a Disney business retreat. So again, knocking off two birds with one stone. I get my fix for Disney. Also, the people that I'm attracting into my business and my clients are usually Disney people. So it's a lot of fun. We vibe in the same way that way. So we do the business portion and then we ended the business retreat going to Disney. So again, being strategic and creative about that, I think is really, something that everyone can do, but not everyone thinks about doing all the time. And then the other thing is just really, really careful planning. And I know you said that, but I like to look at my calendar like a year view. So I already have trips planned for the majority of next summer. So because of that, I'm like, okay. And everyone's asking me about when I'm going to host my next retreat. I'm like, sorry, guys, I don't have one on the calendar quite yet. Just because I know, I'm not going to be doing business related stuff during the summer because I'm going to be abroad a lot of the times. And I'll be home, 2 weeks between one trip and 1 week between the other. But I also know me, again, going back to that self-awareness piece, I will run myself like ragged, like doing all the things. I'm like, I need some rest time. I need some recharge time. I need to be with my dogs. So knowing all the pieces that I absolutely have to fit in and then fitting in the other pieces where I have the space. So kind of like playing Tetris a little bit is something that, again, we can all do. It's just sometimes we don't always do it. We're like flying by the seat of our pants or we're Or you could be like me this last September. And for some reason, I booked a trip for every weekend out of town. And I'm like, why did I do that? That was horrible. So by the end of September, I'm like, I don't even remember this month. Like, I don't even remember all the things that happened because it was so, jam packed. So that's when I know myself and I know I needed the rest, but then I didn't listen to it because I did, it was kind of poor planning all the way around, but it all works out in the end. But yeah, I would say planning and getting creative about where you can fit the things in and how you can make things happen. Because I think if there's a will, there's a way. So if you want to do it, you'll find a way to do it for sure.
And I love how you like everything ties in, like everything makes sense, for your business, your brand, your lifestyle. You're not trying to, with the creativity piece, right? Like, let's take my business retreat to Orlando so we can also do Disney. But I also build my business and talk about Disney to where Disney people are attracted to me. So then they're gonna want to go on that trip too. Like everything that you're doing is so magical. It's all like it's all intermingled to where it's like, why I almost think of that saying like work smarter, not harder. Like you make it all make so much sense that the lifestyle that you want to live, you make part of your business, part of your brand, part of life. And so for me, that's a big takeaway from you is like, okay, if you want to build a business, if you want to, travel or do different things, like make it all just part of you. Like when I think of Lindsay, I think of business, I think of Disney, I think of travel, I think of teacher, and that's literally everything. And you've combined it all to be like, okay, let's get creative and make it all make sense. And it makes perfect sense. I love that.
It's my brand buckets.
Yes.
So yes, I'm so glad it's working.
It's working for you, sister. It is. Okay. So let's get into then a little bit of, well, before we do that, have you always, the goal here with talking to our friends here is, right, inspiring and empowering women to step into their power. And I just see that so much from you, again, like with the business, right? Like, let's take our power, let's become aware of who we are, what we want, make it work, make it make sense. And so you do that so well. So if someone is listening and they're like, okay, like, that's great. Like, how do I do that? Right? Like, how do I step into that power? Have you always wanted, were you always like, I'm going to be a business coach. I'm going to be a Disney fanatic and I'm going to make retreats and go to Disney. Like, how did this come about and how did you find or create the confidence to like pursue this?
Okay. Definitely two different questions. I feel like.
Sorry. Yes. I was all over. I have lots.
No, you're fine. I just have to remember to answer both of them. So the first one, how did I start doing this or become, a business coach, is that it all happened super organically. So I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I thought for me, teacher had to be the classroom setting because that's what everyone thinks of when they think of teacher. And then 2015, my mom passed away from breast cancer. And it was really, really hard. My family is super, super close. And she had breast cancer for a really long time. And when that happened, I feel like the me from before, I almost like detached from her. And I went through grief in a very, I'd lost my grandparents and we were close, but it was just like a whole nother level. And so everything that was a part of my life before, like my big friend group, they were, in a very different place than where I wanted to be. So like, I didn't want to go out to the bar anymore every night. And I didn't want to live that sort of lifestyle. And so I found myself very alone, to be quite honest. And I'm like, okay, well, this is it. Like, this is life. What am I going to do about it? And so I actually read the book, The Energy Bus. I don't know if you've read it. Mm-hmm. It's super short. And to this day, I'm like, that book 100% changed my life because it took me out of the depression I was in. And I was like, I can choose however I want to feel right now. I have the ability to do this. And so I fell into network marketing. Actually, I belonged to a gym in Columbus, and the owner of it was a body coach, Beachbody at the time. And so I started doing that. I always thought I was never going to do anything like that. I did that. And I really found my new community. And It was a group of women and men who really didn't know the me from before, which was really refreshing. And I felt like almost like I could reinvent myself, but it wasn't even reinventing myself because I feel like it was always me all along. It's just I had very much put myself in a box in the environments that I was putting myself in, my day job, everything kind of the way it was supposed to be, and not really allowing myself to even imagine other possibilities. So I did that. I went up in a few ranks really quickly, started seeing some success, really enjoyed it. Long story short, ended up switching through a couple different companies. And along the way, each company that I was in, I was able to find success. And so people started asking me, what are you doing? You don't seem salesy or spammy. You're different than a lot of the other network marketers we see. And I realized the piece that I really loved wasn't necessarily the network marketing products, but it was coaching the women and showing them how to build teams. And it was my team calls and getting to talk, again, building those relationships with people. And I had a crazy idea because I started listening to podcasts and doing personal development through all of this. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. So the podcast actually came first. And so I started the podcast. And at the time it was called the Social Selling Sisterhood, because I was really specifically talking to network marketers because that's really what I knew. And then I created a planner tracker, a free group, all those small little steps that got me to where I'm at now. So that's what I'm meaning when I say it's a journey. Like everything kind of came incremental. It wasn't, just like an overnight sort of thing. And then when clients started working with me to get coached, they weren't all network marketers. And I was like, so I can help a bookkeeper, even though I don't really know much about bookkeeping. However, the things that I'm teaching will apply to any business. So long story short, that's how I became a business coach. And so I started coaching about 3 years ago and then added in retreats because I went to some retreats and really loved them. And I'm like, this is so fun. I want to create this for my community. And so, I've been in masterminds. So now I have my own mastermind. And I think the really cool thing about doing that is you get to take the bits and pieces that you really love and that work for you and make them a part of your programs and a part of your offerings. But also you have seen what your coaches have done. And even though it didn't work for you, possibly you can still use those techniques with your clients. So it's almost like you have like your little medicine bag with like all the stuff in it that you can like pull out to help people. So in that way, it has been super organic. Now I'm trying to remember the second question. I knew I would forget the second question. Coaching. And do you remember the second question?
I don't remember because I worded it as like one whole random thought process question.
How did you become a coach? And
well, let me go here and then it'll probably come to us or we'll come up with a new question. But what I wanted to just call out that I think is really cool is how you said it is like so organic. You didn't start saying, I'm going to be a business coach to all these people. It was like, okay, I started in this company, then I moved companies. And then I was like, let's do a podcast and then let's add this and let's add that. And you really just went with what made sense for you in the moment and like what you felt like I had the ability and qualities to be able to help other people in this way. And you just built on to it. I think so often, especially in our social media world, where we just see someone and we just think, they woke up one morning and they decided they're going to be like the best motivational speaker in the whole world and 20,000 people showed up to watch them and end of story, right? Without realizing that so many people, it started with one thing. It started with one idea, one podcast, one email, one this, one that, and just based off of, and like you said, again, it comes back to that self-awareness of what you realized you were good at and what you really enjoyed the most about the process and said, okay, what can I do with this? Right? Like, how can I use this to build from here, to build what you are building now? And you're not done now, right? Like next week you'll come up with another idea and be like, let me add this to it. And then let me add that. And then you'll keep adding to that medicine bag that you mentioned, and I just think that is really, really cool. So maybe this is the question that I had, and I don't even know if it was the question, I
actually remember
okay.
it.
Okay, go ahead.
We're talking because what you said was kind of basically my answer anyway, but it was how did you find the confidence to do all of that? And it's one step at a time, right? Like trial and error, not being afraid to fall on your face, even though you actually might be. But one step at a time. But anyway, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, no, but yes. So one step at a time. And this is probably going to be the answer to your next question, or you can elaborate more. But if there's someone listening who is like, okay, but I have this dream, right? Like I want to be the best bookkeeper with millions of dollars, or I want to be that motivational speaker. Or I want to be the next great business coach like Lindsay. Like, what would you tell that person? Like, where do they start? Especially, right? You and I both have this experience, right? Working a full-time job, trying to start something on the side, right? While also living a life, traveling, doing the things. But if that person's like, okay, I really want to do something, like I have this thing that feels right, what would you tell them, like where to start?
I think you get to make it a priority, first of all, if it is something that you truly, truly desire. And I heard this on a podcast and I don't remember whose it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. He was basically saying, and it was a gentleman who was the podcast host, if you spend, I think it was 2 hours a day, 5 times a week on the one thing that you want to become the best in the world at, bookkeeper, coach, whatever. By the end of a year, it was Ed Milet's recent podcast. But anyway, by the end of a year, you will be, and I forget the exact number, but like 80% better than everyone else who has ever tried to do that thing. And I think that speaks such volumes for consistency, because showing up consistently doesn't have to be the same thing as being consistent. Wait, what's the word? Showing up I'm going to totally mess this up. Consistently is not the same as constantly. And I think people get those two mixed up or think that they're the same thing. And so for me, when I was very first starting out and I'm like, I don't even know what to do, whatever, 15 minutes a day. And that was my consistency where I'm fitting it in for sure at lunch every day. And then if I had some extra time, great. If I didn't, that was fine. I didn't let myself, get beaten down about that. But it wasn't that I had to be doing it 24/7 in order to start, like in order to just take that next step forward, have that one more conversation, pull up that video on YouTube. I mean, I found videos on YouTube. I literally typed in like power hour for my business. And I found these like recordings and I played them and I did what it said to do. It was like these random people on YouTube. And I would pull that up and I would listen to it at work. So I had a half an hour lunch break. So I would go get my lunch and I would come up. And by that time I had about 20 minutes left. And so I would do 20 minutes of that power hour and I would push pause. And then the next day at lunch, I would push play and I'd do the next 20-minute chunk. And, I just did that and I did it consistently. Why was this so hard? Consistently. But it wasn't something I had to do constantly, if that makes sense. So that one's a baby step.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Because, and I also really love that everything for you, what I'm hearing throughout like all of this is resourcefulness, right? Like you said it, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. And so you just said like, I went on YouTube and I looked for a business power hour, right? And then with traveling, right? Like you Googled how to travel for free, how to get grants, how to do these things, where so many people sit back and they're like, oh, well, that's not possible. That doesn't work for me. Nothing, there wouldn't be anything like that. Instead of just saying, well, let me see what is possible and what I can do. And then with that whole, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out a way, like you said, yeah, it was an hour-long video, but you said, okay, I got 20 minutes. Let me do 20 minutes every single day, right? Yep. And so that's that consistency piece, is the every day or whatever you decide is consistent for you. But I do think, especially with, maybe even more so now, we think of to be successful in business, you have to be constant. You have to constantly be on social media. You have to constantly be doing things, sending emails, showing up. Like it just feels hard to be able to do that. And what you're really saying is, yo, homies, like I did this in 20 minutes chunks of time, like because I wanted to. And so that's what it really comes down to, right? So for you with doing like your business coaching and things, what's one of the biggest struggles that you see a lot of women, because I know you work mainly with women, but people in general, what do you see as like the biggest thing that holds a lot of people back when it comes to business?
So one thing that I see a lot in my current clients is trying to be at the same level as someone else when they haven't put in the building blocks to get to that yet. So they might take a free course or even buy a course on launching, but they don't even have the foundations of their business down yet. And I'm like, girlfriend, what are you launching? Who are you launching to? And so that comparing ourselves to others, I don't think is always a bad thing. I think a little healthy competition sometimes, or seeing what's out there and what's working for other people, can be a good thing if you do it and use it in the correct way. But I also think it's so easy for us to get caught into the trap of, seeing where someone else is and not knowing like, okay, well, Lindsay's been doing this for 8 years compared to me. Like her launch is going to be a little different. Or when people see, and sometimes I can put out 3 emails and I make sales, but it hasn't always been that way. Like there has definitely been times where I had to do a lot more, or I had to be, DMing or doing a lot more live videos than I have to now, because I've put in that time and build up those foundations. And so I think wanting to skip some of those pieces to build up the foundations, or thinking maybe you can take a shortcut by, I don't know, automating something. And I'm a queen of automation, trust me, like I'm all for automating, but, automating something, or just, skipping some of those key pieces. And, you probably could, it's just going to either take longer, or you're going to have little holes that fill in your business. And I'm a big fan of taking your time, getting it really strong at the base, and then building everything as you go. So you have something that's actually going to last for you.
And can we just say that that's true of like every part of life, right? Like everyone wants to skip the steps, right? Like when I'm cooking my dinner, I'm like, do I really have to do this part? Like I just want to get to the end and have the delicious meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And same with like, wellness.
Yeah.
I'm, coaching women with body image, and they're like, can I just do the workouts and eat the food and just like lose the weight? And I'm like, I mean, you can, but it's not going to work for you long term, sister, because you're going to end up right back where you were, because we haven't built that foundation. So everything in life, right? And I know business is one of the best, and I know you kind of mentioned this like with network marketing, business is one of the best like personal development opportunities, right? Like we grow so much as business owners, just personally, mentally, because everything can be applied, like that foundation piece, right? Like that can be applied to every other part of our life. Like stop skipping the steps, like start with the foundation.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So can we jump to like some rapid fire fun questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Okay. So I feel like I have to switch them up a little bit for you.
Okay.
Okay. You can hang out with one Disney character and they become like real. Who do you hang out with?
Oh my gosh. This is too much pressure. Okay, I have to say The Little Mermaid, because I really think I can still see myself being like, how old was I when that movie came out? Like 3 or something. Like belting out those songs. I'm pretty sure that's the reason I want to travel. It was definitely The Little Mermaid. So I want to be BFF with The Little Mermaid.
I am obsessed with this answer. I love that. All right. What is one? Oh man, you kind of answered that already, but I'll ask. One movement or exercise that you enjoy that makes you feel powerful?
Ooh, yeah, I'm going to have to go with my Peloton bike. I really love that. However, I do really love a good half marathon, particularly the ones at Disney. Those are really fun.
Yeah. Okay. So you can have one meal for the rest of your life. What do you choose?
Ooh, this is probably a really lame answer. I really like barbecue chicken salads.
Oh, okay. Do you get them from
Like
a specific place?
best of both worlds. Not necessarily, but I do really like the ones at California Pizza Kitchen, if they still have them.
Okay.
I haven't been there forever, but they used to have a really good one.
Okay. Good answer. Now I feel like I need to try. I'm not a salad person, but now I feel like I need to try one of those.
Oh, you would like it. I feel like, for sure.
Okay. So best Disney movie ever created.
Oh no. Ever. Okay, I'm gonna go with, I really like Frozen. So I'm going to go Frozen. I think just the whole storyline is really good.
Okay. What is one daily or consistent habit that helps you step more into your confidence and self-love?
Sleep. I got really clear on my boundaries for sleep a few years ago, and it like changed my life. So my sleep is pretty much non-negotiable unless I'm doing like an overnight flight to Europe, in which case I will sacrifice my sleep for that one night. But other than that, I need my sleep.
I love it. A certain number of hours or like?
Okay, this is going to sound really crazy. I prefer like 9. I'm a 9-hour girl. I listened to a podcast on the Chalene show with Chalene Johnson. She had a sleep expert on a few years ago. And it like basically taught you to track how much body you're like when your REM cycle was and yada, yada. So anyway, either 7.5 or 9 are my sweet spots.
Good to know. What is one song that makes you feel powerful?
Oh my gosh, what's it called? I literally have it up over here and I can't think of, it's a song. It's the song by Lily. Is it Mayola? Daydream. Have you heard that song?
I have not, but I will go listen after this.
I will send it to you. She won, I think it was America's Got Talent. And I love that song. It's super empowering.
Oh, I'm going to add it to my playlist. Yeah. Okay. So who is one powerful woman who has inspired you in your life?
I'm going to go with my mama.
I love it. Last one. If there was one powerful piece of advice you could leave for little girls or women, what would it be?
You have all of the power and talent and everything that you need inside you. You don't need the validation from anyone else to do anything that is put on your heart. So go out there and do the thing.
So good. I love that. I'm going to put that on repeat and just play it to myself every single day. I love it. Because I love when people always ask me, with my girl empowerment programs and stuff, like, what age are they for? And I'm like, well, homegirl, you might be, like you might be 47, but you need the same program that my 7-year-old needs. Like we all need the same messages and reminders. It's so good. Okay. Is there anything before we say goodbye? Is there anything we didn't cover where you're like, oh man, I really wanted to share this with our friends listening that I might not have asked you?
I don't know if it's that you didn't ask me, but I was thinking of this story when you were talking about something. I forget what you had asked me, but there was a moment in my network marketing journey that I wanted to share because it was the one that I reference a lot with like a switch went off in my mind. And I had been in my business about 3.5 years by that point. And I had done several different companies and I had just kind of plateaued at a certain level in all of them. Like I had a team and I was seeing success. And so I was at my national conference with some of my teammates and I was listening to all these top leaders speak on the stage. And everything that they said was stuff that I knew. And I just had this moment in this audience that I was like, why not me? And I just want you to hear that message. If you're listening to this and you have felt that same way, like I know all this stuff that these women are saying and what are they doing that I'm not doing? And the answer is literally just that they are taking action. And so I left that speech. I went up to my hotel room. I had my team come up and I was like, all right, ladies, we are doing this. We are going all in. And I was like, I'm walking on that stage next year. I'm going to be recognized. We are going to be the top team, like all this stuff. And we didn't get to the very top, but I walked that stage the next year. We grew, I don't even know what percentage. It was insane. And it was just a mindset shift. So if you are feeling that way in any aspect of your life, it doesn't even have to be business related, but if you're looking at that person and you're like, why can't I be healthy like her? Or why can't I have XYZ like her? You can. Like, this is your reminder that you can, find the way, like you said, be resourceful, be disciplined enough to go after it and take that action on that thing. Because if not, you're going to be sitting here in a year asking yourself that same question. And we don't want that.
Mic drop. Like that was it. Like now I'm like, okay, Lindsay, we got to stop talking now because I got to go take action. Lindsay just said,
That's right. Let's go.
let's go. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Lindsay. For those that are listening and they're like, okay, I need more Lindsay in my life. I love Disney. I love to travel. I want to do the business thing. Like, tell me all the things. Where would you like them to come hang out with you? And I'll drop the link so they can just click. But where's your favorite places to hang out where you would want people to come hang out with you?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm Lindsay Dollinger on both of them. Feel free to find my personal page. Business page doesn't really matter to me because I talk to people on both. And if you love podcasts, because you're listening to this one, you can find me at the Purpose and Pixie Dust podcast.
Yay, perfect. And like I said, I'll drop the link so they can click and go. Fabulous. Lindsay, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I love you as a friend and all your business stuff and the Disney and all the things. You are just killing it and helping so many women. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate you.
I'll remind you at the end of every single episode, you do not owe the world pretty, but you do owe yourself to step into your personal power because you, my friend, are a powerhouse woman. Go out and prove it to yourself.